Everyone cares. The pre-show. All right, we should be live and direct. We are streaming live. You over there in the corner are tuned into the pre-show. This is the pre-show party before the after show, before the after party, before the tomorrow's show. Yeah, that's about it. So, Hip Hop Can Save America live. I'm letting people trickle in. The live stream should be streaming live. And you guys are the behind the scenes. Oh, you get like the VIP access. This is nice, isn't it? Just us in the green room with like edibles. And wait a minute. You didn't pay for edibles. You don't get that experience. And I'm checking to make sure that I'm so excited about today's show. I hope you're watching, you fools. I'm glad you've been watching every day. People are coming back. Thank you for that. I can see your comments wherever you are. So if you could hear me, say hi. Hey, Rissa, you beat me to it. I see you, Shark. How you feeling? You're out walking. You said you were out walking. I'm trying to get my exercise game back. These pandemic pounds are real. All right, we are moments away from an extraordinary episode of Hip Hop Can Save America. And then we'll be, if you're watching live on the whatever you're watching me on, of course, it'll also be posted as a podcast. So if you're into podcasts, you can also get because you might miss this. You might miss a daily show. And to my guests in the room, hello. I'm looking up here because of the camera. You know this, but I just don't want you to take it personal. And I'm not looking in your eyes. I want you to feel like a fan. You can't look at me. All right. I don't even want to wait too long. Let's let some people come into the rooms. Rissa's walking. She's taking walks in the park. I live near a park now. I moved, so I'm very excited to get back to some kind of regular thing. I used to do kickboxing. Shouts to CKO Kickboxing in Newark, New Jersey. It's great. I recommend it. They've reopened, though. Places are reopening. Safe and, distanced and all those things. So say hi in the comments if you see me, hear me, smell me, feel me, taste me. Let me know that everything sounds great. I'm excited about this episode because we're going to be introducing you to some folks that you should know. So it's great that you're here with me and we could banter and talk all day. But I'm really excited when I'm able to pass along great people doing great things. Let me turn that down. And hopefully, I would say hopefully you don't know them, because it'd be great if you do. But if you don't, then that's good too, because now you will. All right, I'm very excited. Can you tell? I get butterflies. Okay. All right, guys. We got some people in. We got some people checking it out. I think it's time. The guests won't see this till afterwards, but there's a theme song, and then there's a thing on the thing that says theme song time. So I think it's theme song time. Let's go. Let me press the right button.
The thing about hip hop today is it's smart. It's insightful. The way that they can communicate a complex message in a very short space is remarkable. And a lot of these kids, they're not going to be reading the New York Times. That's not how they're getting their information.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Hip hop culture is more than music.
Peace to you and speak the truth. Show 'em what peace can do in their reach for you.
My hip hop will rock and shock the nation. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live.
So hip hop didn't invent anything, but hip hop reinvented everything.
Yes, y'all. And you don't stop. You don't stop doing a daily live stream Monday through Thursday from 1 p.m. Eastern until it's time to go home. That's what we're doing. It's Hip Hop Can Save America, the podcast live for all you friends, neighbors, supporters, and haters. We're doing it every Monday through Thursday for the month of September with a special bonus drop on the podcast tip. Only available for the podcast feed. You can check that out wherever you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Hip Hop Can Save America. Not to be confused with Hip Hop Can't Save America. It's a different podcast. We're going to battle one day. There's no other podcast named that. I'm just joking. Listen, it's your man, Manny Faces. I'm rocking with you. Like I said, weekdays for the month of September. We've had some amazing guests with new guests every day. That's the whole thing. It's not just me talking to you. Anyone could do that. But who could pull in this amazing assortment of guests that we've had for the past 2 weeks now, about halfway through the month, literally. And we have the rest of the month booked out. Incredible folks doing incredible things that deal with the intersection of hip hop and other areas of humanity, generally in a positive way. People who are using hip hop in education or science and technology or health and wellness or politics, activism and social justice or the fine arts or spirituality, all these intersections and amazing ways that we can use hip hop, kind of music, the culture, the symbolism, the spirituality, the ethos. We bring hip hop to different platforms and improve lives, livelihoods, and communities, and humanity, and society, and all of the things. So, if you haven't gone, if you're just checking this out, go back, binge watch for a bunch of episodes. You'll love what you see and hear. I do believe if you're a fan of hip hop. If you're not a fan of hip hop, that's even better, because you probably have kind of an idea of what hip hop might be and what it might be about. And we dispel some of those myths, and I think give you some really innovative, inspiring, and surprising ways that hip hop culture is actually benefiting humanity. So that's my job. That's what I do. You can follow me wherever you follow people. Manny Faces on most of the things. Just Google me and the thing you're trying to find me. Subscribe to this podcast again on the podcast feed. And we do have a great newsletter that goes out periodically. It's called the Hip Hop Advocate. You can find out information about all of this stuff at hiphopadvocacy.org, the Center for Hip Hop Advocacy at hiphopadvocacy.org. Special thanks to Funkadelic Studios for showing some love sponsoring this show. If you'd like to sponsor, you can always reach out and let us know. We can do the same thing. Funkadelic Studios is in Midtown Manhattan. A lot of musicians and artists are getting that itch to get back into recording or rehearsing. Their studio's back open, limited capacity, social distancing, high-tech UV rays and bursts of, I don't say radiation, it's probably wrong, and that makes it sound way more deadly than it should, but they're keeping the place clean and safe, and you and your music friends can go down, rehearse, and record. Funkadelic Studios has been a friend of independent musicians in New York for a very long time. Do check them out. And also Newsbeat, again, another podcast. We've had them on this show. I'm part of that movement as well. A social justice podcast that incorporates high-level social justice journalism, tackling some of the issues that we hear and see and talk about and wish would be covered more. They cover it, and then they incorporate music and original hip hop very often to kind of give it that real compelling, energetic punch. We like to say it's like if Democracy Now! And Black Thought had a podcast, baby. So do check that out, Newsbeat, wherever you find podcasts. And you'll see up here, if you want to support this work, patreon.com/MannyFaces. I always wait to the end. I want you to do it because this stuff, costs money. We could do even more. We could do it even greater, bigger, faster, stronger. But don't leave now to go do it. Don't forget to come back because I don't want you to leave. We're going to get started in 2 seconds. 1, 2. So today, as you can see on the screen and as you can read the words of the episode where you're getting it, Culture Fix. Hashtag Culture Fix is my guest collectively. 2 wonderful people who I've known and followed and worked with in some regard very loosely in the past for quite some time. When I talked in the beginning about what this show is about, bringing stories and people together that are doing innovative things that incorporate cultures and perspectives and ethos, all to kind of help humanity. There's really, this is textbook example of what Culture Fix does. Nora Rahimian and Natalie Crew are with me today to talk about their organization, the background, the past, present, and future of what this wonderful idea is all about and how wonderful it works in practice. Heroes of mine, heroines, I suppose, are with me today, and I hope that y'all could hear them and that this technology is working. We got the 3-way action. What's up, Nora? What's up, Natalie? How you doing?
Hey, Manny. It's good to be here.
Hello, my friend.
It's good to see. It's good to see your faces, not just your hashtag. You guys are super active in the Twitter sphere, but you've now been doing like digital events, and there's so much that you guys have done individually and collectively as Culture Fix. Please, for the people who may not be familiar, in your own best words and how you describe what's the elevator. What is Culture Fix to the folks who don't know?
So Culture Fix is a global network of artists, activists, entrepreneurs, creative people, very broadly defined, who connect across borders and use their platforms for social change. So what Natalie and I do is play matchmaker with creatives and curate events where people can come together and share information and resources. Really, the whole idea is that we have within our networks everything we need to succeed. And so if we collaborate and work together, we can overcome any kind of wall, ban, political system that's trying to divide and conquer us, and also achieve collective success. So good people doing good things from all around the world.
Right on. Who's the us? Who are you trying to say, hey, we're trying to uplift and give strength in numbers to?
Good people doing good things. I mean, really, we're this like broad amoebus kind of network.
Right.
And it really, like, we don't, people ask, well, like, what is Culture Fix? And it's not like there's a membership structure. Right. If you align with the values and you're trying to overthrow white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism, and creativity is the way that you do it, like, welcome to the family. It's that simple.
I find, and Natalie, you'll speak to this because we've spoken, we've all talked, but, it's a global thing. You guys are globally. I mean, this is Hip Hop Save America, so I do focus kind of domestically, but it's the same kind of idea that creative folks are doing the real work. Like, there's celebrities, there's big organizations, there's national and international organizations, but there's something real grassrooty about Culture Fix. And I think that, as I often say on this show, the puffy voter dies, the other ways that like kind of celebrity culture is being used to try to get people to do things is great. Sure. Helpful. Maybe. Who knows? Debatable. We could talk about it. But when you talk about like people who are doing things sort of in pockets, that collective power in numbers is really, really important. You guys are fostering that. Am I on the right track with this?
I think we really want to amplify, like, oftentimes we get caught up in the vote or die campaigns and like all these other massive, very manufactured things going on. But there are really amazing people, especially like within the Culture Fix network, that are doing amazing things. Again, not just in the States, but like across the globe. And we really want to amplify that, but also like provide a connection point for people doing that work. So people know that, like, yeah, there's all these big campaigns, but there's also these very localized or local campaigns that you can connect to and be a part of or learn from, or maybe rethink your own work by looking at what other people are doing. So this work really gets cannibalized by the media, the larger like social impact structures, the arts sector. So we try to bring it home.
I think that's valuable. A lot of times we see issues, we hear about issues, we see media coverage, and people, don't always know what to do or how to get involved, or, and then if all you see is sort of like these large, systems, you could put some money into some, some random nonprofit or whatever the case. But again, there's something about the people that you're working with who are doing some on the ground stuff that's really close and local and or very niche, and whatever it is, you could find it kind of in the network that you guys are helping facilitate. How did this, I know, I'm sure you told the story a bunch of times, but how did you two realize that this was a void that needed to be filled? How did you, randomly like reach for the same piece of cake at the same time, like in the movies, and touch and look at each other and say,
it was Persian ice cream, actually.
How did y'all say, hey, we could do this. Let's fix this thing. Let's use culture to fix things.
I love this story, so I'm going to say it. So Natalie and I mean, it kind of was like that, though. We were so Culture Fix is turning 6 years old this month. So 6 years ago, Natalie and I were on a Twitter chat just randomly, and I see this person tweeting about like global hip hop and politics and being very, very bold and unfiltered in her tweets. And I was like, what? Global hip hop and politics? Like, me too. Right. And so literally it was 4 tweets. We went back and forth. I DM'd her. We got on a phone call and really quickly realized that we knew amazing people all around the world who were doing this kind of work that you're talking about, but that those people didn't know each other. Right. And so we started to talk about, how isolating it can be when you think you're the only one doing this work and everyone is co-opting your messages. They're co-opting the visuals without actually doing real work. And so that's kind of how we were like, all right, well, what can we do? We can connect people. We can start to spark these conversations. And so actually we had started Culture Fix. We'd started doing Twitter chats and stuff like that before Natalie and I had ever even seen each other.
Nice.
Like it wasn't until like 6 months in when we did a chat with Ruche from South Africa, who's an amazing cultural organizer, photographer, that he was like, oh, we should get on Skype. And Natalie and I were like, oh, we should maybe get to see each other.
Nice.
We should have done this like months ago.
Wow.
But it was because we were so aligned in terms of the values that we shared, how we wanted to work, who we were working with, and ultimately like the change that we wanted to create. And I think that's the thing, kind of to what you were asking earlier, Manny, the thing that makes us different is that the people that we work with aren't so much invested in the optics of change. They actually want to create change. Like it's some real like life or death, do or die shit for the folks that we work with, versus some of the folks that are getting media attention or on the, vote or die or whatever, where it's safe and it looks good. I think folks in our Culture Fix network are a little more comfortable with like risk and discomfort. And that's a really unique thing to gather people around, I think.
Right. Was it James Baldwin who said something about artists are supposed to disrupt or, make people uncomfortable or something like that?
Yeah.
I'm butchering it, but yeah, I think that's super important. It started. Did it start as sort of the Twitter chat #CultureFix, which still goes on to some degree? Where's some of the topics covered? People, not everyone knows what kind of these orchestrated Twitter chats are all about. So a weekly, certain time, all tagged with a hashtag, but themed. And what were some of the themes that you guys were starting to delve into that started to like kind of get some attention and some participation?
We did like the intersections of sports and social change. We talked about decolonizing love. We were talking about like trans inclusion. We were talking about we've done some very practical ones, like how do you build a team? How do you build collaborative relationships globally without being colonial? And then we've done more like theoretical things around like accountability. So basically they're very broad conversations. And the premise is always that none of us are experts or we're all experts. So we all come in and speak from experience and share the work that, talk about the work that you're doing, talk about your local nuanced context. And so we did Twitter chats for a really, really long time. And then now what we're doing is having Zoom conversations so that people can get more in depth and really explore. And we're bringing in guests and doing a little bit of more information sharing. Yeah. And then, we do events and we partner with folks like Hip Hop Ed and Accountability Lab and, do things like that as well.
Right. But crossover events.
Always.
When you go into their sitcom and then they come into your sitcom. I did that
with
Newsbeat.
On the couch.
Yeah. I did that on Newsbeat. We had a crossover event. It was great. And then I labeled it as a versus. It was great. But that's great because again, Hip Hop Ed, another kind of Twitter chat, that grew into something offline. I mean, conferences and a book series. Like there are ways to take some of the ideas and couplings that you guys are helping facilitate, like you say, matchmaking, and have them turn into other things. And that's, I guess, a goal.
I mean, one of my favorite things is when people who meet or connect through Culture Fix go and create. Like we don't claim ownership over any of it. Right. I want you to go and create. And then I'm like, oh, it's like my baby, it's our grandchild.
Wait, you had me sign an NDA. Wait up. No, I'm just kidding. I know you didn't. But that's it. It's like, this is like in the spirit of collaboration and creativity.
Yeah. And the idea that like we all win. So your success is our success, even if like we're not owning it or claiming it, right? It's this like non-possessive way of encouraging people to work together.
Yeah, especially when they then invite you on their show. I'm just saying, I'm not like hypothetically, that's a beautiful thing to do, to reciprocate. Because of course, I did participate in a Culture Fix with Lisa Russell, I believe. Who shouts to Lisa Russell. I think that was the one we were guested on. So it's great to see this kind of hand in hand happen. What are some of the examples of that? Are there some kind of anecdotal things that you know about where people have gone on to kind of collaborate and move offline? Is that something like is there something specific you could speak to just to kind of give people an understanding of, well, what type of people that, you know, might match with other people, maybe it wouldn't have happened on their own, that kind of thing?
I mean, Susan Campion, who's been part of the network since day one, she runs Giant Steps in Minneapolis.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yep.
I'm like, let me not
Yeah.
get it wrong. We've made some introductions to Susan for people who have then spoken at Giant Steps and have become part of the Giant Steps network.
Right.
Um,
And they're great. TK and Conscious from Bonfire Radio are
My
affiliated with
people.
them. That's it. You know, so you know, there's connections. We're all kind of, you know, 6 degrees of dopeness.
I mean, but like, I think that's part of the thing, right? Is like, we're all so interconnected already, right? Like you mentioned, Lise, like we all know each other. This world of like global hip hop with this kind of political lens is so small. And so why aren't we supporting each other? We should all be on each other's podcasts and shows and like on each other's Instagram feeds and amping, like, because in the absence of institutional power, our power comes from sharing and supporting and amplifying each other.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we try to do in like small ways and big ways, and in the ways that we're able to, is like, let's hook each other up. Why not? The homie discount should apply to everybody.
Right.
Like, here's some resources, like, or here's this person, they're looking for this, like, here you go. Like, I'm not necessarily in need of whatever they have right now, but I know that you were talking about it. So like, here's some resources, here's this person, like, you connect, goodbye, thank you.
Right.
More grandchildren, please.
Yeah. And that, I mean, you were great. You know, we did it when COVID kind of became a thing and we were all kind of pandemicked up and staying home and all the things that were going, you know, kind of crazy. Some of us, myself included, I took to online. I took to doing some live streams, not quite as comprehensive as this, but, you know, going on every day saying, hey, I'm in touch with a lot of the people. Like, these are people, my Twitter feed is, I don't know, people complain about their Twitter feed. I hate everyone on my Twitter feed. Well, then follow better people, because the people on my Twitter feed
are dope.
They're dope. We were doing some things, and I was sharing a lot of the information and forwarding it, like you said, passing it along, being on Facebook and seeing, independent artists, you know, need to get funding. Here's some grant opportunities, and I was finding them. I started talking about them. Here comes Natalie Crew with links upon links upon links upon links. And just and coming back, Nat, you came back like days later to that same thread on my Facebook page. It was like, got a new one, bong. And I'd go online, bong, here's a new one. That, to me, I mean, that speaks so many volumes as to why this is such an effective and just wonderful thing that y'all doing.
Yeah, I think in the sector, like, a lot of times in this, I don't know about that. You might have me up by like about 15 steps. I think a lot of times in the art sector and like even like hip hop circles, especially with the political lens, like certain resources go to certain individuals or like groups. So like whenever I see things, I try to share and like amplify them. Or I know some groups that I belong to are like, can be like very exclusive. So I don't care. I'm going to share like whatever resources dropped in that listserv or that group. And like, I want everybody in our network and even people connected to you to like have these resources and access to them. And only in that way can we like grow like the hip hop culture and continue to like foster like relationships. So I not going to be like that gatekeeping person that you often find like in the art sector. So when I saw those grants, I'm like, here Manny, like here Sam, here, you know, this person, absolutely. That person. So
I passed along things that I applied for, and I'm like, well, I'm just adding to the competition. But you know, like, how can I sit on that? Like, we're all going through it, and you know what? People do need. I've passed along some things. I was like, I could apply for this. I'm like, you know what? I'm not, because I don't want to add to that pool of applicants, because I don't need it as much as somebody else might. But again, just putting it out there, and you know, you come to find that there's a lot of independent artists, especially in this, like you said, political land, social consciousness, whatever you want to like attach to it. Even just an independent artist that just, you know, doesn't have any of those things going on. It's very difficult to receive timely, authentic, vetted information that can help them. We you know, there's this big scam going on. These artists getting, you know, this mixtape thing that's happening, you know, and people are like, you know, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna get into it. It's another show.
That's
but
another
like,
show episode.
That's another show. But that being said, like, there, you know, people do get duped. People are kind of confused. There's a lot of things going on. You need to know, you know, with grants, it's very important. Like, you know, follow this, do that, have your affairs in order. sometimes you find out too late. As a new business, I started technically my production company in July of last year. So I hadn't even been technically in business for a year. So I wasn't eligible for some grants because I didn't have business records going back. And there's some people that do things kind of, freelancing, but they're not keeping business records. So you have to backtrack and say, oh, now all that information needs to be kind of dealt out ahead of time. That's what I think some of the stuff you're doing. You did a cybersecurity event. Like, so I think you're also at the same time of like giving information now when it's needed. Also, like you said, giving some general forward thinking stuff that you need to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, we want people to have the foundation to be successful.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are really good at the art piece, but it takes, listen, grants are intentionally difficult, right? They're set up to be barriers. And so if we can do our piece around making it accessible to folks, but also then providing some support around how do you successfully apply for this? How do what are the nitty gritty details?
Right.
Then awesome. There's enough success for all of us. And so if I share a grant or I share an opportunity, doesn't mean that I'm never going to get my success either. And that's foundationally how we operate, is there's enough for all of us to win, and let's help each other get there.
Yeah. What do you plan on doing? Obviously you've adapted, you've pivoted, as you said, to kind of digital meetings. I'm showing the Culture Fix Twitter search. You don't see this, but for everyone watching, I'm showing the Twitter feed of a search on hashtag Culture Fix, which is a rabbit hole that you can go into because, again, y'all been having these not only these Twitter chat and conversations, but you're attaching Culture Fix to a lot of relevant stuff, even if it's not an official, hey, we're together at this time. So it's a wealth of resources and a wealth of great people. So again, with the pivot, with doing some things online, what are some of the upcoming or, planned adventures that you're going to go on under the Culture Fix kind of brand?
So we're celebrating our 6 years in 2 weeks, and that's
happy almost birthday.
Thank you. And I have to say it's exciting because look, Culture Fix is just me and Natalie. We do this on top of like all the other things we do to like actually pay our bills and survive in the world. And so it hasn't always been like easy and smooth sailing. And so the fact that like we've made it 6 years is super exciting, I think. So we're actually taking some time to build up our infrastructure. We're looking for help. So if anybody wants to help us with like admin, social media, organizational stuff, please feel free to reach out to me and Natalie. We need you. But so I think that's actually it's not as exciting as like telling you we're going to start a festival or do a conference, but we're actually taking some time to finally build up our infrastructure so that we can do what we do better. Yeah. And then we're starting to talk about what a type of very intentionally larger gathering could look like, where there's resources and information and networking and people can come to one place and get it all. That's a little more useful than like a conference. So we're in the early stages of that.
Conferences can go either way.
Yes.
No comment.
It's another podcast. We're gonna have like spin-offs. We had the crossover. Now we're gonna have the spin-off.
13 seasons later.
Hey, call me the Norman Lear of podcasting over here. That's dope. And it is important because again, you have proof of concept. You have shown that it works, that people get such valuable information, such valuable connections from anything that you guys have you figured out. I think that real Venn diagram of creatives and issues and effective ways of navigating life, and that Venn diagram right in the middle is, I think, at the heart of what Culture Fix is all up to me anyway. That's sort of what I get out of it. Natalie, you always do this. You always come in and you say, "Yep, worldwide, global. Don't forget." I mean, we talk about hip hop, we talk about music stuff, and both of your focus is making sure that this is global. What are some of the ways that having a global network that Culture Fix reaches the globe? And you talked about other countries and other folks doing things elsewhere. What kind of inspiration do you get, and then also what kind of help do we get to export as very American-centric Americans?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that we're helping anybody. I've very much distance myself from this notion of like savior complex, and that's a lot of what I find wrong with the hip hop political sphere that exists in this country and their culture exchange programs. But that's episode 85. For me, like traveling to other places and interacting with folks and bringing artists over to the States for many years, it was more about like exploring like what does this political hip hop thing look elsewhere? Like how are they expressing that? Like what models of like infrastructure do they have in XYZ country? And out of that, I kind of came across this guy, Vandal in Malaysia. He's actually from Canada. And they were doing a lot of stuff around blockchain and like kind of circumventing the whole traditional music industry model. So like I've been finding a lot of different things like that, like in Brazil and like Argentina and like all these different places. And we can learn a lot by like stepping outside of our own like lens and looking at what other people are doing. And one of the things Nora says, and like I also like say quite a bit, but Nora's a big cheerleader here, that the US is not like the centerpiece or the focus of the entire world, especially like in the hip hop sphere. There's so many other things going on elsewhere. The biggest hip hop festivals, let's keep it funky, are not in the States. They're in Colombia, they're in the Czech Republic. And they're doing this stuff extremely well. So we can learn a lot in multiple arenas. From production to the music to different music models. But yeah, and Nora can definitely add to that. So.
Yeah, what do you think, Nora? From a worldwide perspective, what can we learn, and what are we learning, and what should we be learning from, you know, the way all of these things that we've touched upon are being handled elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the US, it's so easy to get tunnel vision around like what success looks like, how you have to achieve it. And as soon as you step out, you realize that there's so many different ways of engaging with audiences, of building you know, we work with artists who can walk down the street in LA and no one looks at them twice. And then they go to Japan and everyone's like, oh my God, because they realize that there's multiple markets and there's multiple places to connect. And so I think part of when you start to look globally, what comes up is the possibility of so many different alternatives. And that's true in terms of like what music sounds like, in terms of how people collaborate, but also looking at the way that government systems support arts and artists and what's possible politically. So you go to Canada and they have grants just for music managers. Like who does that? Or you go somewhere else and they, you know,
Canada does it.
I mean, Canada does it, and but I mean, so if you only think about the US, there's such, even the ways that, even when we think we're being creative and innovative, we're only being creative and innovative in the box that the US allows us to do that. And so looking out really expands what possibility can look like. And then that's from that place where we can create new systems, new collaborations, new partnerships. Like that's where innovation can really, really happen.
And I love that that's the message you preach. I've talked about this before, but when I went to, well, first of all, the only time I was out of the United States, except for, you know, on the continent, I went to Europe. I went to Lyon and the Lyon Original Festival, which had been going on there for a long time. They brought me over there. And this was a festival, pure hip hop, all the elements, multi-day, outside. There's a town square, and it was Easter Monday. Apparently they shut down for Easter Monday else in other places of the world, something I didn't know either, because I'm an ignorant American. And I go on this thing, and they have a whole town square, and they got these giant, plywoods made to look like trains, and they flew in all these graph artists from New York, and they're painting, and they're writing on these giant things. There's a 600-year-old building, and on the balcony is DJ Babu from the Beat Junkies, and he's DJing out to this town square. This used to be the governor's mansion, 400 years ago. And I'm just chilling, and the whole town square is surrounded. All the bars and the pubs and stuff are open, and people are just out there just taking it in. They're not necessarily fans of hip hop. They're like locals, but they seem to be respecting what was going on. They weren't like hurried, rushed New Yorkers that just rushed by the, wildly talented person you might find on a corner or in a subway station. They were kind of absorbing it and taking it all in. A couple of years later, the organizer of that brought me to Paris. So I went back to France. I was very blessed and honored to be able to do this. And they have a cultural center, a hip hop culture center, La Place, in the middle of Paris, France, that was paid for by the city of Paris. Yeah, by the government. that to me, like, and it's a beautiful place, high tech. They have classrooms, they teach things, they have great sound stages. I DJ'd behind my man Shirt, shouts to Shirt, who's out there performing. And I'm like, yo, I mean, granted, you want to build a museum, you want to build all these things kind of here in the birthplace, but this was a real example of how the government really respected and the people really respected hip hop on a much larger scale than just the lucrative music, radio, corporate, side of things. And it was very eye-opening for me as, again, being someone that had known these things existed, known that, like you say, Japan could have a whole different, but man, to see it in person, it's like, it's a model. It should be here.
Mhm.
We should be doing it here.
I think one of the most incredible things about La Plaza, like they have incredible programming. They have a lot of people that are from the actual culture, really fueling that ongoing project. But they have a co-working space where they allow like hip hop cultural practitioners to like come in and like really work on their businesses and like provide like actual support, not just throwing them loans.
Yeah.
But I think even there's like hip hop, like Colombia, there's like a big festival there, Hip Hop al Parque, and there's 75 to 100,000 people that go to this festival. You can't even see the back of the crowd. There's so many people. They don't have any like mainstream acts except for hip hop cats from like across the continent and elsewhere, and they're really like fueled by the actual culture. It's not this manufactured thing going on. They represent the elements, but they also have like cultural production workshops. They have workshops around entrepreneurship. And there are a lot of these things going on else in the world. Of course, there are semblances of that here in the States, but you see it much more elsewhere. And the government, without the propaganda funding piece or like Kavit, they're actually funding these projects. That project in Colombia is actually funded by the Colombian government and some other folks. So it's interesting to see kind of the growth of hip hop culture like elsewhere over the last like how many decades, 3 decades or so.
Yeah, and I think it's probably another spin-off conversation to see like why governments do the things they do, and why they may not be so keen to it here, because of course we know that hip hop is very much about community. I think everyone understands that, but it becomes a real threat when it becomes about constituency. You know what I mean? And so I think that there's probably a catch-22, and I think we see that in the way that corporate media portrays hip hop, whether it's intentional or non-intentional. Again, another spin-off conversation. But
episode
a lot to be
95.
I'm writing them down. Just have you back every day. We can just talk about all these things in detail. That's it. No more guests. It's just y'all. But this is, again, why the work that you do is so valuable, and why the people on the same wavelength, working together, learning about each other, connecting, vibing, supporting, retweeting, joining the network is so valuable. It's really been a great pleasure to follow, all of this over the last few years. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I try to preach the gospel every chance I get. And again, that's the whole thing. Hip hop can save America, but it needs to save itself a little bit too in America, before it can do all these things. With that, as we get towards the end, I don't want to hold you guys too long. The name of the podcast is Hip Hop Can Save America. And of course, we've danced around this idea, this concept. I think it's a really lofty goal, and I think we need a little bit more than just that. But some of the things we've been talking about, these intersections, these ways that the culture and the people and the ethos of hip hop can improve things. We've seen the receipts. We talked to the people. We know the art. We know who's doing it. What's your best argument for why hip hop music and culture should be at the table when discussing how to really make change that can affect and improve lives and livelihoods and communities in this country?
I think, well, I know hip hop has always been like at the core of like social impact and social change, although we might not like see the whole brunt of that, like, and not just in the States, but across the globe. It's been the ethos of hip hop culture are provide like a vehicle for us to like really understand and like sharpen our analysis around like what's really going on. And like hip hop has always been like, it's not about it can change, like hip hop is changing Even from its birth in the Bronx to even in LA during the riots, or even where I'm at in Stockton, California, like hip hop has always been at the core of like pushing the envelope and really challenging, you know, the world to like actually look at its own like bullshit, excuse my language, to shift its kind of the concrete, I want to say, to shift like our perceptions, to shift like what's going on, to like really look deeply into what's going on. So hip hop has always been a part of that, like from, you know, hip hop cats not being allowed in mainstream clubs except for like the punk clubs in New York City, and people like, well, we're just gonna have park jams, we're just gonna have like our own little community centers, our own little parties at our own spots, and that like challenging kind of the status quo, and them not really caring about the government or these other clubs and like creating their own spaces. So like hip hop has always been that. And there's like multiple other things that I can name in terms of like hip hop, like shifting the landscape. But yeah, like hip hop needs to save itself and get back to its roots. But like hip hop has been doing that work since its birth into this world. So
yeah, indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, to Natalie's point, if hip hop has always historically been about the most disenfranchised. And so if we're talking about creating new systems and coming up with solutions, you can't do that without having the most disenfranchised as part of that conversation.
Right.
And people who have historically for decades been doing the work, right? To Natalie's point, hip hop has been always about what that change could look like, what those alternative imaginings could be like. And so if we think of hip hop as the experts, right, who have put in the work for decades, of course they should be at the table, because that's who needs the solution most, to frame it in like development, social change talk, right? Right. You need to have the community that you're serving in the conversation and then allow them to actually lead the discourse and make the decisions. And to Natalie's point, I think there's a little bit of kind of assimilation that hip hop has tried to do. And so to me, what I'm interested in is how is hip hop going back to itself, to save itself first. And then I think once hip hop does that, a lot of things will fall into place, actually.
I very much agree with that sentiment. The dog does too. So you have a very good cheerleader right there. Like, that's right.
I'm with you.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. But I think this is part of it. I think what I'm trying to do is part of that. What Culture Fix does is definitely a part of that. When you say hip hop needs to kind of bring it back. It's not just hip hop, the music. We know it's the hip hop culture, it's the ethos, it's all the kind of sprinkles of hip hop DNA that are found in a lot of us and a lot of different people in different ways. That healing of itself, I think, is happening. I think that it just needs the attention. I think that people are doing the work. Organizations are doing the work. We've dropped some names in this one. They're doing the work. And I think that as a journalist, to be able to tell those stories, and as sort of facilitators to bring those people together, those two things are extremely valuable. And I don't know, I couldn't think of anyone that I think that does it better than Culture Fix. So I thank you for your hard work and dedication. 6 years, Dougie Fresh, you're on. And I look forward to the party.
You're invited.
Your invite's coming soon.
I appreciate it. So please, obviously, people can find you digitally. That's where Culture Fix has its roots. Where should people look to find you guys individually and collectively as Culture Fix? And then tell me also what individually you might be doing behind each other's backs that people should know about.
Nor and I don't do anything to be behind each other's backs, but maybe around the public. You can find me at Natalie Crew everywhere on the internet, but I'm mostly like on Instagram and Facebook these days. I ran away from Twitter for a while. Nora's gonna get off me after this conversation. So yeah, I'm also like on other like Steemit and like other blockchain platforms just to kind of divest from social media. But I'm also doing a lot of like cultural production and event stuff with Arts for Change, which is also like a global network of like educators We have like a conference coming up next month apparently, and some stuff with some legendary veterans in the artivist sector. And I got a lot of other things going on, but
All right.
Culture Fix is our baby. So
All right. Very cool. Nora?
And I'm Nora Rahimian on everything, Instagram, Twitter. I do one-on-one consulting for artists and entrepreneurs. So if you're trying to figure out how to navigate all this in ways without having to give up your financial freedom or your creative control, or want to use your platform for change, I do one-on-one consulting. I'll help you figure it all out. And then tomorrow, Jasmine Lamb and I are hosting a conversation around radical self-care. So if people are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. That's the other thing that I'm really invested in, is how our personal and political intersect, and what does it look like to take care of ourselves and each other better on that emotional level. But yeah, hashtag Culture Fix will find you. You'll find us. Reach out to us if you have any thoughts or ideas.
Sounds good. As I said before, I'll do everything I can to help spread that word. Thank you guys for both being here today. It's just an honor and a privilege to know you both. And
likewise.
Same, Manny.
To rock
Thank
with
you.
y'all. Let me know anything else is popping. I'll definitely pass it along to the audiences that pay attention to me. And I do encourage everyone to now, if you haven't already, pay attention to y'all.
Thanks, Manny.
All right. I appreciate it. Anything else that I left off or that you need to bring up?
Wear a mask, wash your hands.
Don't drink bleach.
Don't drink bleach.
I love it.
Copyright Nora.
I love it. I love it. The essentials. All right. Thank you both.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
All right. There you have it. My good friends from Culture Fix. You guys, you ladies can stay in the room if you like and kind of see me, bumble my way out of this. I don't have to say much more than that. If you haven't been inspired to check out Culture Fix, if you weren't already familiar, please take my word for it. The incredible mix of artists and creatives and move makers and shakers and change makers and just great, influential, inspirational folks that rock the Culture Fix Network is a place to get hope. You know what I mean? Like sometimes these days and times are wild. And if you're an artist or creative or someone who is looking at the world through social, political lenses and wants to see things better and not always knowing what road or path there is, you'll find great perspectives. And that's what it is. I always think that you shouldn't get your news from one location. You shouldn't get your news from one social network, if any. And that's what I love about the Culture Fix ecosystem. So many different perspectives from a global standpoint. And Natalie Crew mentions, and both her and Nora always talk about the global perspective and how important that is. We're in New York, we're East Coast. So not only do we have the selfish United States syndrome, we have the selfish East Coast elite bias or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there is something to all that. I want to know how people are using hip hop in positive ways to uplift humanity. And I don't want to just get wrapped up in what's happening in the big cities. I need to know what's happening in rural areas. I need to know what's happening in small neighborhoods where some of the best work is being done. It's not all on celebrity level. It's not all on, the revolution will not be televised. It's not all in front of your faces every day. It is with the people, places, organizations that are in touch with the people who are going through the things. We talk about this on the Newsbeat podcast very often. It's why you don't hear our voices on the Newsbeat podcast. We have to have the voices represented. So while you're hearing my voice and I'm talking to you as me, it's my honor and privilege and my duty to bring voices to you. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. The folks at Culture Fix, the hashtag online, of course, and follow and participate in their conversations and events and et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, we are here every Monday through Thursday, live, wherever you're watching me now, live, 1 p.m. Eastern, doing this for the entire month of September, doing my very best to bring interesting and exciting people who are, again, working with the intersections of hip hop, music, and culture to improve humanity and uplift society in many different ways. Culture Fix is a great way of that, of doing that. We've had Hip Hop Public Health. We've had Ernie Panicoli, the legendary hip hop photographer. We've had Social Justice, represented by Newsbeat and Silent Night. We've had Dialect the Playwright to talk about the fine arts and how hip hop can find its way into stages to also kind of provoke thought and I think evoke change. Put the seed of change in people's thoughts and prayers, as they say. So a bunch of interesting folks have been on this show for the past half a month. We have a bunch more coming up for the next half a month. And of course, follow us as a podcast on wherever you have podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. Hip Hop Can Save America as a podcast. I'm dropping a couple of bonus episodes just to the feed. So that's it. Culture Fix. My good friends, thank you once again for being here and for taking some time out of your undoubtedly busy day. I need a nap. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow at 1. Thank you once again for anyone who's been listening. Tora on a check-in. Cindy, once again, thanks for all your help. Rob L back in the mix. Rissa, everyone else who shouted out. I'm looking at the different channels that we're at. Do support this if you like this work and you say, "Oh my God, Manny, you're so incredible. How do you do this? You must be rich." No, but your donations will be gladly accepted and put directly to this work. Patreon.com/MannyFaces. Under no obligation whatsoever. I do give a couple of interesting things to patrons, including some free sponsorship. So if you're listening, that means other people like you are listening. That means if you have a thing that you want to tell other people like you might want to do a sponsorship. But if you become a patron, you get that for free. You get the hookup. So anyway, check it out there. Patreon.com/MannyFaces. If you don't do that, at least do me the favor of sharing this real quick. Right now, there's a share button. Share it. Let people know, hey, I came across this really cool thing. It's about hip hop, how it can save America, how it can intersect with all kind of areas like education, science, technology, politics, social justice, and bringing people together. Hence the Culture Fix movement. So if that's what you want to do, that's fine too. Pay it forward. I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all. You can find me at mannyfaces.com and related social networks if you need to get in touch. Any questions, suggestions, comments, praise. I don't mind praise at all. You can actually praise me if you'd like to. Not like exalt me. That's crazy. But just, say nice things. I'm always down for that. So thank you once again for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Same Manny time, same Manny channel. Thanks, y'all. Peace.